Meet Saucebuck, one of the less conventional grass types you'll see. Most grass types fall into being supporters, stat fighters, or special sweepers. However, Saucebuck is a bit different. Its greatest assets are its attack and speed, making it most useful as a physical sweeper. Not only is this rather unique for grass types, but it's a nice surprise for your opponent if they don't know what they're up against. With moves like Jump Kick, Double Edge, Seed Bomb, Solar Beam, and Mega Horn, which, might I add, it knows from the egg, Saucebuck is great to bring into a single battle to take down a hefty opponent. But it can also learn Aromatherapy, Light Screen, Safeguard, Grass Whistle, and other moves of the like if you want to mix it up a bit. Or, if you really want to annoy your opponent, get yourself an HP junkie with moves like Leech Seed, Synthesis, and its signature move Horn Leech, as well as holding a big root or leftovers. Trust me, I've had some good times trolling online players with my HP junkie Saucebuck. No matter how many times I use it, the gag never gets old. Also, if you happen to run a Sun team, Saucebuck is a prime candidate for you to use, thanks to its ability Chlorophyll, which doubles its speed in the sun. It's pretty handy if you want to make a quick buck. Now, something you've probably noticed by now is that Saucebuck has several different forms. 4 to be exact. You may be wondering what these different forms do. Well... nothing! Yeah, pretty much. Saucebuck's forms are dependent on the seasons. Autumn, winter, spring, and summer. They don't have any real effect or purpose in-game, but I like it. I'll give it a pass. In conclusion, Saucebuck is pretty interesting as far as grass types go. Not my favorite, not even my favorite from Gen 5, but still pretty good. Meet Starmie, the water type with 10 limbs, a big red ruby at its core, and a speculated alien life form. Wait, what? Okay, putting aside random Pokédex entries, Starmie has a base stat total of 520, which for Gen 1 was outstanding, and it's still pretty good today. Its 2 best stats are its speed and special attack, making it a brilliant choice to be your team's special sweeper. Its moveset, fittingly, consists of some powerful special attacks like Ice Beam, Thunderbolt, Psychic, Scald, Dream Eater, Hydro Pump, Flash Cannon, and Surf. Beyond that, however, Starmie has very little use. Don't get me wrong, I'm sure it's possible to build a defensive Starmie or supporter Starmie, but I personally haven't seen one done well. As a result, in a competitive battle, Starmie is rather predictable and easy to counter. Pretty much any Special Wall, Sucker Punch, or Electric type will do the trick just fine. I don't often find myself using Starmie in competitive matches for this very reason. However, it is very reliable on a regular playthrough. Of course, it can learn Surf, which is a great convenience, but it also does unusually well against many major NPCs in the franchise, especially in Kanto. Aside from Lieutenant Surge and Erica, Staryu and Starmie can hold their own very well against a lot of them. Even the infamously cheap Sabrina, thanks to its secondary Psychic type. Overall, Starmie is very reliable for playthroughs, but not as much for competitive battling. Well, at least in my opinion. You may not see my Starmie out in battle, but trust me that it's done its job very well. Grovile is another one of those cool Pokemon, like Skarmory or Toxicroak. It's just got a certain pizzazz to it. First off, just look at it. It's got a sort of dinosaur thing going on, which is good because lots of little boys like dinosaurs. Then you got the freaking elbow blades, which are actually leaves. And then there's that expression like he's thinking, yeah, I know I'm awesome. I love it. Stat-wise, Grovile's base stat total is 405, which is not good, but keep in mind that it still has one more evolution left. With high speed and special attack, Grovile is very much a special sweeper. With moves like Leaf Storm, Solar Beam, Giga Drain, Slam, and what was once its signature move, Leaf Blade, Grovile is very reliable for dealing out damage quickly. Sceptile is better, but Grovile's not bad, especially for a Pokemon that isn't fully evolved yet. Grovile has had many different interpretations in various Pokemon media, but all of them seem to paint him as one cool dude. Ash had a Grovile in the anime and it was freaking awesome! Wally had a Grovile in the manga and it was freaking awesome, or so I'm told. And we haven't even touched Mystery Dungeon yet. In Pokemon Mystery Dungeon, Explorers of Time and Darkness, Grovile is introduced early on in the story as the villain. He's been stealing time gears, which, you know, isn't exactly a good thing. So your main goal is to defeat him and put the time gears back where they belong. And really, I should just stop right there. I know it's a bit of a cop-out, but the backstory they give this Grovile, and the things he does during the game, are just too good to spoil. People who've played the game know what I'm talking about, and people who haven't played it really need to experience it for themselves to get the most out of it. I'd be lying if I said that Mystery Dungeon wasn't the main reason why Grovile is one of my favorites, because it is, but he can still hold his own in the main series as well. Nothing else I can really say except... like a boss! Another grass starter? Yep, this time it's Serperior. Serperior was my first starter Pokemon in the Unova region, and remains my favorite starter from the generation, as well as my favorite grass starter in general. Serperior has a base stat total of 528, mostly based in its defense, special defense, and speed, although the rest of its stats are pretty good too. This does make it similar to Meganium in a number of ways. However, unlike Meganium, Serperior is definitely meant to be an attacker. Serperior's moveset consists almost entirely of special and occasionally physical attacks. Leaf Storm, Frenzy Plant, Leaf Blade, Slam, Giga Drain, it's obvious what the developer's intention for Serperior was. Sure, you might have it learn Coil, and maybe Gastro Acid, but the vast majority of its moves are meant for fighting. That's not to say it's a bad thing, it's just, well, not what I expected in a grass type. But then I started using it, and lo and behold, it works pretty well. I found Serperior to be the most useful in single battles. Its great speed gives it a good chance of getting in damage quickly, and its high defenses also shield it pretty well from the opponent. It's nothing deep, but still relatively effective. Overall, Serperior was a very handy Pokemon to have as I went through Unova, and I'm sure I'll get plenty more use out of it in the future. This is one case where being a snake in the grass is a very good thing. Meet Gardevoir, probably the most versatile Pokemon I've come across. Okay, technically you could argue that Mew and Smeargle are the most versatile, and that's because they are. But for a Pokemon with a set move pool, Gardevoir can be used in several useful ways, which is quite the accomplishment in my book. You can make your Gardevoir into pretty much anything you want, even within its confined moveset. You can make it into a heavy hitter with moves like Psychic, Future Sight, Dream Eater, Focus Blast, and Zen Headbutt. You can make it into a Status Inflictor, with multiple moves like Confuse Ray, Hypnosis, Thunder Wave, Will-O-Wisp, Attract, and Toxic. You can turn it into a decent healer with moves like Wish, Healing Wish, Heal Pulse, and Heal Bell. You can even make it into what I call a Rule Breaker Pokemon with moves like Skill Swap, Taunt, Ally Switch, Trick Room, Magic Room, Wonder Room, Trick, and Pain Split. You can make it into a Suicide Pokemon with moves like Grudge, Healing Wish, Memento, and Destiny Bond. Also, if you have a good stalling team, Gardevoir is an absolute must for you to have thanks to stored power. Basically how this attack works is that it starts off with a base power of 20. Not very impressive, is it? However, for every positive stat increase the user receives, that power is increased by another 20. Theoretically, with enough time and resources, stored power can reach a maximum base power of, and I'm not even kidding here, 860. Of course, you'll never realistically see this happen, but still, 860! And there's still more possibilities with Gardevoir that I'm sure I haven't gone over and probably haven't even been discovered yet. It just goes to show how diverse one Pokemon can be. Sure, almost all of its attacks are Psychic types, so if you're going up against a Dark type, you're pretty much screwed. But when a Gardevoir pops up on screen, you never know what to expect, and that is exactly why I love it so much. I'm interested to see what changes Gardevoir will go through now that it's part Fairy type. Hopefully, it'll only get better. Houndoom is one of those cases where you just have to wonder, what the hell was Nintendo thinking? I mean, really? A Pokemon based on a Hellhound, whose howls give other Pokemon shivers, and whose flames create burns that never heal. I'm sure that will go over extremely well. But, regardless of concept, Houndoom does make for a pretty cool looking design, and it's pretty good in battle too. Houndoom's base stat total is 500, which is primarily based in its special attack, speed, and regular attack. In other words, it's a sweeper. But what else would you expect from Cerberus the Pokemon? With access to Flamethrower, Foul Play, Fire Blast, Solar Beam, Overheat, Dream Eater, Inferno, Super Fang, Heat Wave, and Iron Tail, it has a number of powerhouse moves to work with. However, something I've noticed about Houndoom's move pool is that a lot of it has very low accuracy. Inferno, its most powerful move by level up, only has a 50% accuracy rate. Fire Blast, 85%. Fire Spin, 85%. Heck, even Iron Tail, 75%. What gives? Well, at least it learns Odor Sleuth by level up, so you always have that option. Or you could just not use those particular moves. But even putting aside that one complaint, Houndoom is still a rather effective sweeper in its own right. It isn't the best in every situation, but the ones it's good in, it's really good in. And of course, there's that cool aspect to him with his design and even his concept to an extent. Not much I can say, it's just a good Pokemon. So you better go get yourself one. Or he's gonna get ya. Wow, I seem to be liking the sweepers in this second part. Well, here's another one with Drapion. The first thing that really attracted me to Drapion was its type. As most of you know, two of my top 3 favorite Pokemon types are Dark and Poison, and hey, would you look at that! So obviously, I was interested to see what this Pokemon could do, and it didn't disappoint in the slightest. Drapion has a base stat total of an even 500, the bulk of which is put into its attack, speed, and surprisingly, defense. So it's another physical sweeper, but it does have a significant amount of bulk as well should the need arise. And with moves like Venoshock, Iron Tail, X-Scissor, Cross Poison, Crunch, Sludge Bomb, Earthquake, Aqua Tail, and Poison Jab at its disposal, it's obviously very good at dishing out damage. However, for the player who wants a bit more out of their Drapion, it can also learn some tactical moves like Acupressure, Confused Ray, Whirlwind, and a personal favorite of mine, Toxic Spikes. It's that little bit of extra variety in Drapion that puts it over something like Toxicroak. However, one thing that always bothered me about Drapion is its species name. It's known as the Ogre Scorp Pokemon. Tell me, what the hell is an Ogre Scorp? I suppose Scorp is short for Scorpion, but then why not just call it the Ogre Scorpion Pokemon? Oh well, name calling aside, if you're looking for a Sinnoh Poison type with a bit more to it, then I would recommend Drapion. It's reliable, it's adaptable, and I can guarantee that when you send out a Drapion, your opponent is in for a rough time. Oh yeah, now we're getting serious. Ladies and gentlemen, appropriately making it into the number 13 spot, we have the first legendary on my list thus far, Giratina. Right out of the gate, a base stat total of 680 isn't a bad way to start at all. Then we look at moveset. With the exception of Scary Face, every single move that Giratina can learn by level up is focused on dealing damage, and quite a lot of it too. Slash, Destiny Bond, Dragon Claw, Earth Power, Aura Sphere, and Shadow Claw are all extremely powerful and cover a wide variety of types. Giratina's most powerful move is its signature move, Shadow Force. Much like Fly, Dig, and Dive, using Shadow Force will cause Giratina to disappear for one turn, then attack on the second. Shadow Force has a base power of 120, has 100% accuracy, and can even break through Protect. But if for some reason that's not good enough for you, You can still teach your Giratina Thunderbolt, Earthquake, Stone Edge, Dream Eater, Fly, Iron Tail, Aqua Tail, Outrage, and even Draco Meteor. Needless to say, but Giratina is very good at giving out a lot of damage very quickly. And having immunities to normal and fighting, and possibly even ground with the levitate ability is just a little bonus. But now, I'd like to bring up something that I first discovered while writing my top 10 legendary Pokemon list. That Giratina may very well be the devil. Or at least this world's interpretation of the devil. Let's examine the evidence, shall we? According to Pokedex entries, Giratina was banished by Arceus into the Distortion World due to its violent behavior. By drawing a parallel to Christian mythology, Satan was originally a high-ranking angel in heaven, but he attempted to rebel against God. As punishment, God sent him to oversee the dominion of hell for the rest of eternity. Is it possible that the Distortion World is this game's interpretation of hell, with Giratina at its helm? Well, there's more. Giratina is known as the Renegade Pokemon, one such definition of which is a person who abandons their faith or their religion. This again could draw ties to the story of Satan's punishment. There's also the small little tidbit that Giratina has been known to appear in cemeteries, and need we even mention that incredibly creepy entrance it had in Platinum? However, it's not quite that clear-cut. For example, the Distortion World is not another plane of existence like Heaven or Hell is depicted to be. It's merely another plane of reality. You don't have to die first in order to reach it. In fact, in both the games and the film Giratina and the Sky Warrior, people have been shown to enter in and out of the Distortion World rather often. Also, Hell is described as a place of eternal punishment, where those who have defied God go to experience the horror of their sins. The Distortion World may be kind of trippy, and gravity is all messed up, but I don't exactly see anything in here that would be classified as eternal punishment. Also, with that entrance in Platinum, while admittedly creepy as all hell, Giratina was actually preventing Cyrus from capturing Dialga and Palkia, which was a rather noble move on its part. Again, going back to Giratina and the Sky Warrior, Giratina does at first appear to be rather demonic as shown in its battle with Dialga. However, it turns out the Distortion World has actually been polluted by a noxious gas after the events of the Rise of Darkrai. After being freed from the Distortion World and from the clutches of Zero, Giratina openly thanks Ash and fights alongside him and his friends to put an end to Zero's plans. I don't know about you, but that doesn't really sound like something Satan would do. So, is Giratina the devil? I don't think so. After all, series creators have declared that Giratina is based on the concept of antimatter. Still, these parallels do make for some interesting theories and speculation. Overall, Giratina may not be the devil, but it is still a great Pokemon nonetheless, and considering my general dislike for ghost types, that's saying quite a lot. Agron is a bit of a mixed bag in my opinion. The strengths it has are really big strengths. However, its weaknesses are also really big weaknesses. In other words, using Agron is a bit of a gamble. Depending on certain circumstances, it can easily crush your opponent, or vice versa. I guess we should start with stats. Agron has a base stat total of 530, the vast majority of which is placed into its physical stats. Agron's defense is sky high, and its attack ain't half bad either. However, its HP, specials, and especially speed are rather underwhelming. This makes Agron very effective at being a physical wall or a physical heavy hitter. On the other hand, it's very susceptible to a special attacker or to an opposing physical wall. Let's also look at type weaknesses. Agron is a dual steel rock type. This means that it has a ×4 weakness against fighting and ground, as well as a regular weakness to water. This does create a bit of a problem, as fighting is one of the most common attack types you'll find in online battling. And if your opponent just happens to be sporting low kick, it's over. No chance. On the other hand, however, Agron has an immunity to poison, a ×4 resistance to normal and flying, and a regular resistance to 7 other types, so it breaks even in the end. But, if you send your Agron out at just the right time against an opponent that can't really do anything against an Agron, there's quite a lot you can do with this guy. You can go the heavy hitter route with moves like Iron Tail, Heavy Slam, Solar Beam, Earthquake, Flamethrower, Focus Blast, Stone Edge, Flash Cannon, Superpower, and a variety of others. Better yet, with the Rock Head ability, which negates recoil damage, you can take moves like Double Edge and Head Smash that would ordinarily be a great risk to use, and unleash them without a care in the world. You could also use your time in battle to use some strategic stat fighting with moves like Roar, Metal Sound, Stealth Rock, and Thunder Wave. Or you could just be a massive troll and use a combination of block and iron defense over and over. Any way you decide to use it, when Agron gets in a good enough situation, he can easily steal the show. Unfortunately, he just has one too many weaknesses for me to put him in the top 10. In real life, bats kinda creep me out. I know they're relatively harmless to humans, but they still scare me quite a bit. However, in the realms of fiction, thanks to the likes of Batman, Rouge, and, yes, Crobat, bats can do some pretty cool stuff. Crobat's base stat total is 535. While most of its stats are rather average and balanced overall, its speed is what takes the cake. In fact, Crobat is the fastest poison type to date, as well as the fastest Pokemon in Johto, period. As much as I would like to believe that speed doesn't play that big of a role in Pokemon battles, even I can't deny that having the first move can be a critical advantage, and it's an advantage that Crobat has over many Pokemon it will come up against. In terms of moveset, Crobat has some variety to work with. Of course you have the power moves like Cross Poison, Air Slash, Shadow Ball, Sludge Bomb, X-Scissor, and Fly. However, it also has a number of rather devious tricks up its sleeve, like Haze, Mean Look, Confuse Ray, Taunt, Thief, Swagger, Defog, Hypnosis, Tailwind, and Roost. There's not a lot of different strategies you can do with it, but its poison type and that incredible speed should give you more than enough to work with. If you want the devastating effects of a poison type on your team, without having to put in the large amount of strategy required, Crobat is a good choice for you.
I am your father, and I am also a scorpion.